Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to Ironside Sheets. Legend of the Sun. The sun rose high above the mountains, cooking those unfortunate enough to get caught in its rays. Leaves dried and cracked, as did exposed skin and flesh. And, on a stone center the blistering domain, stood one known as the Master of the Sun. As the sun rose, so did his strength, and as his power rose, so too did the sun. Fear and superstition swirled around his presence. The neighboring villages detested the sun's potent rays, and the leaders begged him, the Sun Lord, to soften the sun's brutality. The problem therein lied with both their intentions and their status. Mortal men spread across the livable terrain and sought the resources beneath the sun-scorched lands where the sun's rays beat the hardest and the Sun Lord resided. Even large tents providing large swaths of shade were no match for the stifling, baking heat. Every attempt by mortal man to collect the resources beneath the Sun Lord's land were quickly followed by death and the smell of dried corpses. Moreover, the Sun Lord denied their requests because he saw no use for mortal man. They were weak, pathetic beings that had nothing to offer but an all-consuming greed. The Sun Lord pitied their existence and saw no use in feeding their greed.
For all of his power, the Master of the Sun had a weakness, the Mistress of Night, a love affair between two incredible beings. Where his power shone with the rising sun, her power enveloped all with the blackness of night. When they met, it was in the gray of twilight and the orange of dawn, where their strength was equal, and he could not pity her, and he was not reduced to his weakest state. Mortal men confided in the mistress, telling her of their plight. Dwindling resources left women and children weak, sick, and dying. If they could not collect more resources, they would surely perish. They begged for her assistance. Their claim did not sit well with the mistress. The men spoke of brittle women and children, yet there they stood, fit, able-bodied, and ready to work. She denied them. Furious, the men changed their approach. Though in the depths of night she was equal in strength to the Sun Lord in the heart of the day, her power was far more liable to leave her vulnerable. To strip the Sun Lord of his power, men needed to corner and capture him, swallow his sun-based power in darkness. Closing in on the Sun Lord in the land where the sun never sets was difficult. However, to weaken the mistress, she need only be removed from the night. Using magic they acquired from a mage, the men executed their plan. Flashes of light in succession shredded the darkness. For an instant, she was no more powerful than a mortal woman, and, in that instant, the men seized her. They threw her into the center of a wooden ring and set it ablaze, trapping her in a ring of light, devoid of shadows. The men expanded the cage, creating a trail of wood exiting the land where the sun never rises. They set the trail ablaze, opened the initial ring, and slowly brought the flames closer to her, forcing her down the luminous trail. The men led the mistress to the land where the sun never sets and pushed her across the threshold. Never had she been so weak, nor so humiliated. With the mistress in tow, the men met with the Sun Lord and shifted their requests into demands. Failure to comply would be at the expense of his lover's life. How could I feel love for a creature so far beneath me? Their demands were rejected, and with a swing of his blade, the mortal men escort was turned to ash. He did not turn away his lover. Pity was not a reason to dismiss her, but to protect her. Though his words said otherwise, his pride could not entirely overshadow his love. So there she sat at his side, physically no different than a mortal woman and viewed as little more. Nevertheless, her safety was secured. Cooling rains touched the earth on the edge of the land where the sun never sets. A storm, unnatural in its very creation, marched across the land, quenching the thirst of the flora and fauna fortunate enough to be in its path. The storm spread, escorted by a legion of mortal men. Before the Sun Lord stood a mage, lightning cracking between his fingers and raindrops swirling before him. Storm clouds overcast the Sun Lord. You see, don't you, mighty Sun Lord? My clouds separate you and your sun. I believe I have you beat. Despite her power rising in the sudden shade, the Mistress of Night was not what he needed to fear.
with the mere gesture of raising his blade to the sky, light and heat the likes of which neither the men nor the mage had ever seen barreled through the sky, eliminating the clouds and enveloping their master at his whim. With yet another swing of his blade, half of the legion was incinerated. Were it not for his control over the water he brought with him in the form of the storm, the mage would have met a similar fate. A challenge was issued. For the next hour, the land was engulfed in fire, rain, light, and lightning. Torrential floods were reduced to steam. Sword swings were stifled by lightning strikes and thunderclaps. Tornadoes stifled by blistering heat, and concentrated sunbeams made frail by thick, enduring clouds. Then the sun reached its peak. The Sun Lord clenched his fist. What happened next could only be assumed, for the sun's light swallowed the land. Amidst the blinding light, the Sun Lord approached the mage and plunged his sword through the mage's heart. Only a single mortal man was left to deliver the message that the mage fell in battle. In case you wondered, the mistress returned to her domain and continued loving the entity that once pitied her. Thanks for coming aboard.